What's important to you? My mission is to ask as many people as possible this question, because I believe once you know what's important, you can design and build a life of purpose, meaning, and fulfillment. My name is James Dean. I'm a life coach, and I hope this podcast inspires you to uncover what's important to you. You can follow me on Instagram and Facebook at James Dean Coaching, or connect with me on LinkedIn. You can also learn how I can help you understand what's important at 𝗲𝙗𝙤𝙀.com. Today's guest is an expert on all things networking. It is her passion, and one that is born out of experience, plenty of trial and error, mistakes and mishaps. Through her blogs, podcast, and social media channels, she shares tips, tricks, hacks, and ideas on how to become an effective networker in business and in your professional career. NetworkMe spans training, speaking, facilitation, mentoring, and coaching on all areas of networking. As someone who has networked at corporate and career level and in the SME community, she shares her unique insights into networking from the perspective of a shy introvert. Today, we find out what's important to Jean Evans. Hi, Jean. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, really looking forward to chatting to you. So we're going to dive straight in, Jean. So the first question, as always, is what's important to you?
What is important to me? I think what is important to me right now is I'm personally on a voyage of self-discovery. I suppose one part of me feels like I'm a bit of a late bloomer because I'm only starting into this voyage of self-discovery and understanding me better and my impact and my purpose in the world. And I think where I have got to and where I'm going is that my purpose is to help others. And why that is important to me, it's giving people permission to be themselves. The word authentic is bandied around quite a lot right now, but I think when people have permission to be themselves, that means that they're in psychological safety, but it also means they're self-aware and they know who they are and they understand that they have permission to be who they are. And that for me right now is really, really important. And I suppose where it comes from is I spent 22 years in a corporate environment and I never felt good enough. I had, not just imposter syndrome. I never felt good enough. I never felt comfortable in my skin. And it didn't matter what I did on paper in terms of connections and promotions and running teams. There was something in me that felt that there's something not right, but I didn't know what it was. And I was never brought on a journey of self-discovery or said or mentored or coached or said, have you looked at this, or did you know this, or go on a voyage of discovery. And I was made redundant, and at the time, I was a corporate girl for life, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I was like, all right, what are my transferable skills? And I thought, right, sales, marketing, management, that's sort of my background. So I started working in an SME in my partner's company for a few years before I decided to go out and do something myself and set up my own business. And the idea around my business is teaching and training and talking on the content around networking and business networking. And why that became important at the start, it was around teaching and making people more comfortable about networking, because so many people struggle because they simply don't know what to do. And my frame on that is, why would you know what to do if nobody's ever talked to you or taught you how to do it? It's not natural. You're not born with this amazing skill to network. Nobody is. But yes, there's an awful lot of people who look at people who are accomplished or good at it, or think that the equation of a good network is somebody who's a social butterfly. And that's absolutely not true. So part of me wanted to debunk that myth. And on top of that, then a couple of years ago through COVID, I discovered, and again, one of these late pieces of information, that I'm an introvert. And it was a real, I mean, when I talk about a massive aha moment in my life, it was a massive aha moment in my life, because I thought, oh, right, this explains so much. It explains so much. It explains so much around my energy, around when I feel drained and when I feel comfortable. And it just, the more I studied about it, the more I thought, oh my gosh, why didn't somebody tell me this when I was younger? This is massive information, like massive. And it changed everything, because it was like going, if I had known this when I was younger and when I was in management and when I had teams, I would have been more comfortable in myself, more self-aware. But within that self-awareness, I would have been able to set boundaries. I would have been able to be more vulnerable, and things that I never thought I could be. I could never thought I could let down my facade and show vulnerability. It just didn't occur to me that this was something I could do, because I didn't know what my centrals or plumb line was. And the more I discovered this, the more I started reading. And that has led me on a journey where I'm currently training to be a coach, and I'm nearly at the end of that. And that, obviously, you know yourself, that brings you another voyage of discovery, which is amazing. And the more, so the networking attached to connection, attached to helping people understand who they are, because when they understand who they are, they then have permission to be who they are. They're not trying to compete. They're staying in their own lane, but they understand what their lane looks like, because it's predicated around values and knowing the roles and knowing the priorities in life. And you don't have to compete with others, because who you are is okay. You just need to understand what that looks like and how it fits in. And once you do, then the rest of the competition, the rest of the what are they going to be thinking about me, suddenly falls away, and you're going, because this is who I am, this is who I'm meant to be. And that is liberating and empowering, and that is what matters to me. It's to be a part of other people's lives where I can coach or coach mentor or train or help people to feel I'm okay. And when I'm okay, I can grow my confidence. And when I can grow my confidence, and I say this in all my training, when you grow your confidence, you can achieve anything, because your confidence is, again, its baseline is knowing who you are and being okay with that. And that's what's important to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for sharing that. I mean, there's obviously, I can completely resonate with some of the things you said. And one of the things that I'm interested in relation to you talking about there, a sense of working out who you are. One of the things you said personally for yourself was sort of, you said it as like a journey at the moment of self-discovery, and arguably maybe coming to it later than maybe some. And then having spent the, almost 2 decades essentially in a corporate environment, and you kind of felt that necessarily you weren't ever yourself in that environment. It's almost like it's the impossible question, but I gotta ask it anyway. Do you feel like if you had known this stuff before, if you kind of really knew who you were 10 years into that career as such, do you think you would have still stayed? Do you think you would have made more of it? Or do you think knowing yourself now was the realization that I'm not that person in that environment? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. And so some of the training I do, I literally have a slide going, this is all the stuff I wish somebody had told me when I was 20. But the other side of that coin, I'm a big believer that everything does happen for a reason. And I probably wouldn't be where I am had I not gone through that experience. And they say that the teacher arrives when the student is ready to learn. And probably this is where I'm supposed to be right now. And like when I was 15, and this makes absolutely no sense whatsoever, but the world is weird and wonderful, as is the universe. But when I was about 15 and I was in school, I remember thinking, I'm not going to feel comfortable in my skin until I'm in my mid-40s. And that is sort of what has happened and transpired. And so my life has sort of taken a journey in ups and downs, personal and professional. And all of those experiences, as with all of us, all of our experiences color the lens with which we look at life and at people and make our assumptions. And mine is all of the ups and downs, personal and professional, that I've gone through, that has led me to here, that has led me to a place of discovering more about me and feeling that sense of freedom that has come with that, and a strength of conviction as well, because I know what my values are, I know what my priorities are. And and there's lots of naysayers out there. There's lots of people who would look or listen to what I have to say and just glaze over, or it's not for them. But I also know that I'm very comfortable with where I'm at right now, because I can express it, but I can also, the people who will gravitate towards me will gravitate towards me, and everybody else can go away. But I will attract a certain type of person at a certain point in their life. And I suppose where I'm at now, in terms of, would it have been nice to know back then? Without a shadow of a doubt. Without a shadow of a doubt. I worked in an extraordinarily extroverted, high octane, high pressure, constantly with people environment, because I was traveling, I was trade shows, and I was site inspections and bringing people around. It was constant entertaining and being out there. Nightmare for an introvert, absolute nightmare. And but I did it. But then I was also always exhausted. But again, it's all of these learnings, and now I'm sort of going, right, this is what it takes to be an introverted manager. This is what it looks like. And if you're an introverted manager, say this to your team, because it'll give you a little bit of freedom in order to be able to set boundaries. But also, there's lots of introverts in your team, and if they don't know that it's okay to be an introvert, or okay to stand back and say, listen, I can't talk to somebody all of the time, I need to have white space in my diary as well to process and think, you empower them by being empowered. But you can only be empowered if you know who you are. And it sets up a train. So for me, it's part of good leadership as well. And these are things I would, if I were to go back and redo it with all the knowledge I have now, these are things that I would change to be a better manager. I always did as good as I could. I always did my best by people, but anybody's best is always within the boundaries of their knowledge. And a lot of that knowledge is self-knowledge. Whereas when you're in a working environment in corporate, it's all about, you would know from your own background, it's all about technical around how much you know. But the more I learn about this, I'm sort of going, actually, it's all about your self-awareness and your soft skills, that actually the technical knowledge, whatever, it's actually about you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, again, I would echo in a sense of, in some ways, regardless of the industry, whatever that may be in that sort of corporate world, mine was finance, whether it's the people in sort of hospitality, whatever it is, if you understand how to learn, you can learn technical information. So that is something that's very learnable. The discovering of who you are and how you want to present, how you communicate, that is very much, it's still learnable, but it's much, you can't hide it as much as the way I would put it. It's like, it's much more obvious. You can parrot off the technical information if you're good at remembering things. But being able to communicate, connect, is a very different skill. And it's one where, again, I think sometimes, I don't know if you share this experience, it's like, early in my career, that was almost trying to be taught in a repeat parrot fashion as well, as opposed to, well, how do you do it versus how do these people do it, because they're all different. How you communicate as in a leadership role, or even as a subordinate role, the other way, how do you communicate with the people who are above you, people to the side of you, because we're all different. The nuances maybe weren't gone into as much as they could have been. From my experience.
100%. And I think this is one of the things that, through my corporate career, I would have done quite a few psychometric tests and stuff like that. And last year I trained to be a DISC profiler, so in terms of the psychometrics. And I would certainly be of the opinion that everybody should do these if they're in a work environment, because it's, if you've never delved into self-awareness, this is one of the first pieces of framework of information that you'll probably ever see. But the more you learn about it, the more you understand your impact on other people, and their impact on you, or just if you're a manager, to team read, to learn to read what works and what doesn't and how to manage it. And again, this comes down to part of the learnable skills, but it's the soft skills. But if you want to invoke teamwork and that sense of psychological safety, that is a part of it, because it's building trust within your team and allowing them to be who they are, but understanding that, you know, as I'd say to introverts when they're out networking, if you've got an introverted level of energy and an extroverted level of energy, and an introvert recognizes an extrovert, what I would say to them is, listen, you don't have to be the extrovert, but just if you realize you're talking to an extrovert, raise your energy a little bit. Likewise, extrovert, you're talking to an introvert, tone down your energy a little bit. You don't have to match it, but just tone it down. Realize that you can do something to make the other person feel comfortable. And again, you know, the more awareness we have about ourselves and each other, then we can adapt to their style and to that person, which I think is part of the framework of building trust.
Yeah, I'm interested the last sort of almost piece in directly regarding the previous career, in a sense of, because one of the things you said at the start was like, you never felt that you were kind of good enough in it, or you never felt quite right within that role, even the length of time you spent there. When you, and obviously you were saying, oh, if I knew this stuff back then, would have been helpful. Yes, of course. But now doing what you're doing now, the sort of the venture you're building, and the sort of the business you're building regarding networking, are you able still to reflect back on the career you had and now look at it in the sense of, well, where can I pull the positives from this? You know,
100%.
Yeah.
And part of the way I suppose that contributes now is the way I speak to training groups and audiences. So what I'm doing is taking the learnings and observations and things that I know would have made me feel an awful lot better as an employee, but also as a manager. What would have helped me? So I bring all of that knowledge into the training I do, and to give people perspective and say, here's why I look at it this way. So as somebody who is within a stakeholder role within an organization, because you're on a management team or whatever, but you're managing a team, you're also an employee, so you're reporting up, here's how this matters, and here's how this shows up, or here's how this can be a problem, here's how I would have done it differently. So I absolutely bring the wealth of all of that. I think, you know, good and bad, you know, there's good and bad in everything, but I think it's how we choose to frame and reframe and look at stuff. And it's the same with anybody coming into our life. We can make a choice to be victim or negative, and I choose not to stand in that camp. It's like, right, what can I learn out of this experience? What can I learn out of this person having walked into my life and maybe walked out of my life? What can I learn from this to make me better and to help me move forward? What does that look like? So I very much look at what's to gain out of this that brings me forward to make me a better person. So that's the way I choose to frame things.
Yeah, because I think, because when I've spoken to a lot of people who've kind of gone through some sort of transition of career, you know, whether it be from whether it be in a corporate or completely switching, could have been within, had one business change to another. And I think when you may be at that initial cusp of it, of one place ending, where, especially if there's a position where you either getting to the point where you disliked at the end, you weren't enjoying, we can find that sometimes our judgment can be clouded, you know, if you know, thinking we can only see the negative, and because of the sort of, but once I think you mentioned it earlier in a sense of like, more when you were getting to becoming yourself, that word of liberating and freedom. And it's almost when you allow yourself to go, it was what it was, be at peace, whatever, as you say, the good, the bad, the indifferent. It's much more, as you say, I think, to use your word again, liberating, to kind of be able to just move on. And as you just explained there, then reapply what you've learned to help other people.
100%. And I'll give you a current example on that, because at the time when I was made redundant, I was my team, you know, my whole department was shut down. They decided to go in a different strategic direction in the company. And for me at the time, it was like, oh, right, I've no idea what I'm going to do now, because this is what I do. This is who I am. My identity was completely wrapped up in it. So it was very cliche from that perspective. But and I really didn't know where I was going to go or what, and if you'd said to me back then I'd be doing what I'm doing now, I would have said, I don't know who you're talking about. Totally different person, totally different learning trajectory, totally different mindset. Everything was, it's just a different side of me. But I got, as I said, everything happens for a reason. You just don't always know what it is at the time. But for me now, I look back at it and think, right, that has set me on a different trajectory. It set me on a trajectory working with an SME, which meant I had to go out networking, which meant I got into a lot of networks, which I learned an awful lot. I was terrible at it and I learned how to do it. And I'm also naturally shy. So again, I brought a whole different lens to it. And I thought, watch people struggling. I thought I could do something about this because I know how tough it is. I'm not a natural networker. I've learned how to do it. I could teach other people how to do this. And I'd actually like to do that. Because again, it was like the more I was learning about me, the more I thought I can help other people be more comfortable and get there quicker, better, faster. And I thought that's good. But when where are we now? We're at the end, we're coming up to the end of March now. And so 4 months ago, I got diagnosed with cancer. And that was a bit of a curveball in my life. Wasn't how I expected to be spending 2023. I had big plans for my business, what I wanted to do and accomplish. And I was raring to go. And literally I'd launched a new part of the business on a Thursday, and the Monday they said, oh, you've got cancer. And I was like, great, thanks for that. But the way I look at it now is that I don't know exactly what it's supposed to teach me, but I know it's supposed to teach me. So you talked about reapplying, the application there, and the skills and the resilience that I built up through various experiences in the last few years are now serving me, because I see a lot of people on social media when they're in the sort of cancer community, and there's a lot of people who get extraordinarily down and very, there's I won't say, well, wallow, I don't know, is that the right word, but they're in a zone. And I absolutely, not from the moment I got the diagnosis was I in that zone, and I haven't been in that zone. It was like, right, okay, what do I need to do to get over this? So you tell me what I need to do, and I'm going to be the best patient. And again, it was that, right, okay, there's a reason for this. I don't know what it is right now, but I'm open to finding out what it is. And I'm going to, and also within changing that mindset, it was like going, what cancer does is you lose absolute and utter control of your life. Absolute and utter control. That was really, really difficult to deal with. But again, it was like, okay, I can make a choice, step back, make a choice. What can I do? I can't do all the stuff I want to do. What can I do right now to feel that I'm moving forward, albeit way slower than I expected? But what can I do? What is achievable? What milestones can I hit while I'm going through this? So it's not going to be everything that I thought I would get done, but I'm going to keep moving forward, and I'm going to do it while I'm getting better, while I'm going through treatment. And again, that sort of mindset and resilience, and okay, let's do this. Right, let's keep moving forward and keep watching, keep learning, and documenting what's going on. And that was part of the reapplication process for me, because it was like life really is spent, life does send us moments and things to get over. But again, it's how we frame it. It's how we frame it. You can be negative, or you can say, right, I got this.
Yeah. I do really appreciate you sharing such a unbelievable, powerful reapplication of what you learned previously in your life. But the word that was just coming up to me, and you kind of almost got there. You said, like, you were saying reframing, and it was the word that was coming through my mind as you were sharing that was perspective. In a sense of, I'm sure, I'm from, an outsider looking in. So in a sense of, what does, obviously the diagnosis and your treatment that you're going through even at the moment, what does that do in relation to your perspective?
what has it done? What I would say, the first thing I noticed in myself, it's taken a layer of procrastination off me. So I can do very, very little most of the month between my chemo sessions, because it literally, it annihilates your energy.
Yeah.
But when I can do something, I am like going, I have my week where I can do something, and I plan stuff, and I will plan some meetings. I will make sure I get my blogs done then, or some of my videos and stuff like that. So I will do what I can. So it's made me sort of really get down and do. So I'd say that layer of procrastination, and part of the procrastination in me was a little bit of imposter syndrome in terms of ideas I have and stuff I want to develop. And what I would say in terms of perspective now, it's like going, imposter syndrome, get on with it. So part of it is like, just get over yourself and get on with it. So it's sort of definitely taking a layer, and just that, suck it up and get on with it. Just do it. And really, and all the stuff, feel the fear and do it anyway. And again, every book and every cliche you could possibly come with, but literally I can feel my head going, you just need to get on with this and stop talking, get doing.
Yeah.
Get into action, get into motion. So when I can, and the frustrating then bits that I can't do very much because I've only short windows of time where I've got the capacity to do it. But I also know that this is a chapter. I'm not the most patient person in the world, so that's making me put that layer of patience on me, whether I like it or not. But it is a chapter, so it will pass. And I still have all the plans. They're just simmering at the moment. And I will get to them.
Yeah, it's a really almost interesting dichotomy in sense of those two things, in sense of that it's one way forcing you into having patience because things aren't going to go as quickly as you'd hoped or planned for initially, but in the same sense of when you have that sort of finite bit of time when you're able to do stuff, it's almost you say like the words you said, that procrastination, or that sort of almost on that edge before where you were kind of going, oh, should I really say this? Should I not say, that questioning of, and when I'd be interested in the sense of your procrastination previously, you said imposter syndrome before. What would have stopped you in the sense of that procrastination prior to it? What would have been the thought that would have been going through your head before you did something where it's not there now?
Okay, so the part of the business that I launched at the end of November last year was to set up my own business-to-business network. And I had been running in 2019 to 2020, I had been looking after and running a network, and I'd set up groups and done an awful lot of work behind the scenes. And I then sort of pulled back from that in September 2020, and people were saying, well, why don't you do your own network? And quite frankly, at the time, I was very burnt out with it. I was exhausted. And that was one side, which was very true. But the other side of it, I was going, I couldn't do this. Like, who am I to be doing this? But then fast forward into December 2021, and it was just an idea. And sometimes when you have that sort of little inkling and that little spark in the head, I was like, why don't I do my own network? So I did meet with a brand designer, and I said, here's my vision for a network. And it's a business-to-business network. It's a referral network. This is my idea. And I talked about all of the philosophy, the ethos, the type of members, how I would run it. And I developed it over time. And because I had bought a house, a 𝙤𝙤𝙀 house in 2022, which went from a small project to an absolutely colossally mammoth project, I had to step back from work because I was collecting kids and activities and stuff like that. And it was just too much. So I just had to take a step back from work. But by last September, it was really like, I just need to get on and do this. First I would be like, who am I to do this? But then my mind over time had gone to, who am I not to do this?
Yeah.
I've got lots of experience at it. I've been to tons and tons of networking events, tons and tons of networks. I've run networks, set up groups, done all of the branding and the marketing and that. And I said, I've got all of the experience. I've actually got the experience in spades. And my rational brain already knew that. My rational brain absolutely already knew that I know I have the capacity and the capability. I also know that when I come across a problem, I'll either solve it or know somebody who can help me solve it. Rationally, I know all of this, but again, it was my sense of self-belief and my subconscious that was not was slow to catch up to my thinking brain. So by that time, I was like going, yeah, who am I not to do this? I've got lots of experience in this. I'm already training and teaching people. I love doing it. I know I'm a really good connector. I know I'm passionate about helping people be the best business people that they can be. So who am I not to do this? Actually, I'm really good at this. So I had moved my brain on and moved my mindset on, and that was definitely a journey. And so then I did launch it at the end of November, and it's called Ignite Business Network. And then on Monday it said, you've got cancer. Thanks for that.
Wow.
It's just fabulous. After me spending all of this time actually getting my stuff together and the branding and my tagline and my pop-up stands and everything done, the venue and getting people in the room, got it all done. I was like, right now you have to do this right now, really? So but yeah, now I'm in a, so like that was one thing I had to put on the back burner. But I suppose now somebody has come across my path in the last couple of weeks who could act as a bit of a proxy for me. So now I'm looking at setting up a group. I was going to put it off till September, thinking, my treatment, my full-on treatment is a year, so it'll take me to the rest of the year, or the end of the year. But I have somebody who could work alongside me. So even if I'm at home, I can do digital stuff and marketing and all that side of things. But if I need somebody who can be a physical face, then when I can't, then I have somebody who is going to help me with that. So that was sort of unexpected. So I'm just running with it because what? People come into your lives, people come into your life when you need something, or they have a way to help you. You don't. It's the big thing around the universe. If you've got a goal and you've got that worthy goal, it's not your job to work out the how. The universe will come with the how. You just have to have a focus on the goal. So this woman has come along into my life, and I'm going, ooh, look at you, you're part of my how. So just trusting that.
But it's, and the reason I was so interested in the sense of that shift in your head, and in the sense of what was it, because the whole thing of imposter syndrome is quite sort of, you said earlier, sort of the whole thing of authentic words can be, and phrases can be quite sort of in the ether and quite popular. And this whole thing of imposter syndrome is something that I think most of us, if not all of us, experienced at some point. But what I was really interested in was sense of, well, what was the actual words? And you say in your words, in your case, in that situation, was who am I to think or to do this? But then the subtlest of changes, adding in essentially one word, who am I not to do this? And the power of that single change it's night and day, because the question, because the thing is, like, when you ask yourself a question, the brain has to come up with an answer. And so by asking yourself, who am I not to do this, it's kind of like trying to find the answer. And it's a lot harder to come up with an answer for that than who am I to do this, because it can go, well, here's all this times when you were rubbish or whatever. But the other question is, it's a bit more, you have to kind of stand up and be counted type thing.
No, I think there's when I'm speaking to clients about, imposter syndrome frequently will come up in the environment of what I'm talking about and who I'm talking to. And it's around confidence, and again, people, that sense of self-doubt. But as I would say to anybody, like, fact check yourself. You have to, and that's what it is. And it's, as you say, when you ask yourself that question, and then your subconscious is working on the answer, and you start thinking about it, and whether you write it down or making a list in your head, you're fact checking it. So who am I not to do something? Well, who am I to do something? Who am I not to do something? Well, and again, if you're just sort of going, well, here's all my experience. No, well, of course you can do it. You've got all the experience, and in spades. And again, it's that sort of the positive affirmations, the self-affirmation. It's looking at those goals, and it's working on your sense of self-belief. But we all need to fact check ourselves. People 70 to 80%, depending on statistics that you would read, of people suffer from imposter syndrome. But and there's lots of different types, and it shows up differently in people. So it can be procrastination, it can be perfectionism, soloism, self-sabotage. It can show up in different ways in different people for different reasons, because we're all so unique. But once you can identify it, then you can name it. You can also learn how to manage it. But a huge part of that is fact checking yourself. Is what's going on in your head true? What are the actual facts about what's going on in your head? So write it down, write down all of your accomplishments and your milestones. And what I would say to people is, milestones are not just where you've won a medal or got an award or a gold star in something. Accomplishments are where you've met a challenge and got over it, no matter what it is. That is part of you fact checking yourself, to know that you are able to get over a challenge in your life, whatever that looks like. That is part of your accomplishments, and people need to understand that it's not just about all the good stuff. It's the bad stuff that you got over. It also goes into that accomplishments box. And when you fact check yourself this way, and you take time, and this is within our busy world, what a lot of people don't do is give themselves time. And it's not just about, everybody would say they're busy. Yeah, everybody is busy. But if you do not take white space out in your diary to think and reflect on who you are, you can never improve. You simply can't. And you're always going to be on a treadmill or on a hamster wheel, or feel you're not good enough, because you have to give yourself time. So one huge part of what I've learned is, again, reframing my work. I'm a recovering workaholic. I would have worked ridiculous hours, traveled, and literally easily had been working 12, 15, 18-hour days, like easily, when I was traveling and stuff like that. And there's nothing that would make me want to do that again. Absolutely nothing. But what I want to do with the business is run a business where I can help people and empower people. But also, for me, what is really important for me now is the flexibility that I have within my diary, because I've also got young kids. They're only going to be here for a while, so I need to be around them, when they're here. It's earning when I earn, but I'm also taking a step back when I can, or when I need to. What I'm going through right now, what I've decided is, we all know exercise is important. I know you're big into your training, and you're training for your marathon, so well done you. I'm still on the fence as to whether I'm going to put that onto a bucket list for the future. I'm very much on the fence, but we will see. We never know. Right now, making cup of tea is my marathon, so I have a long way to go to get there. But I think that's I sort of lost my thought now, because I went to a cup of tea.
It's, I think what you were talking about there is kind of like that whole thing of the effort in stuff is kind of where you leaning towards there, in a sense of, it's so individual. It's so specific to an individual, in the sense of what an individual's trying to achieve, and their sort of situation and circumstance, and where they are going in that situation, how they're going to do it. And it's the thing is, like, when it comes to sort of like we're talking about their imposter syndrome and how you overcome it to get to where you want to go to, and that fact-checking exercise that people do, it's also that sort of an enabling, in sense of the journey towards the outcome is going to be very specific to the person and the circumstances involved, to them. And having that ability is kind of like what you're talking about there. In some ways, it's like there's an interesting kind of balance between the doing and the reflecting, and this sort of striking this balance. Because one of the things that struck me earlier, a few minutes ago, when you said it was this, and it's kind of maybe related to your, obviously, what you're going through at the moment with your treatment, and that finite time you have at those times, that's moments of, well, I just got to suck it up and do it, But it's also comparing, when you contrast that to your previous career, when you're doing these really long days, there's still got to be those moments of pause and those moments of reflecting, in the sense of, so it's trying to find that sort of, there was a chap I spoke to a few months ago from Belfast, Sean Grant, and he said his phrase was, always balancing, never balanced. Or, you know, so it's like there's a constant flow between back and forth. But if you only just go all in on the doing, then you'll burn out.
Yeah,
But if you
100%.
and if
100%. I
all
think,
you're doing is thinking and reflecting, you're not going to make any progress at all.
yeah, I think there was a word I came across the other day, you know, because they talk about there's lots of different iterations of this, but most people are out there talking about work-life balance, and I'm now of the opinion that is a misnomer. And then I heard, you know, it was work-life integration, and I thought, right, we're getting closer there. But there was one, I was listening to a podcast the other day, and they talked about work-life harmony, and I thought that for me was resonated more, because I think we're all in different chapters, and I think part of where we're at, it's like understanding, right, where am I at within my life today and within my journey? And when you've got perspective of understanding what your values are, what your roles in your life are, and what your priorities are, and then you match it with, how am I actually spending my time? Does it match what I say are my priorities and the roles? And you start working all of that out. And there is no, I think one of the most hurtful and horrible words in our language is the word should. And where people think they should be doing something. And I'm going, according to who or to whom? Who says you should be doing anything? You should be doing what you feel is right, based on what you are doing, who you are, the roles you serve, and the priorities in your life. What I was saying before I got sidetracked, before my cup of tea, was that for me right now, I want to build my business and be there. You know, we're still working on the house and everything, but obviously, and you know, my health has always been important in terms of doing exercise and stuff like that. But all of this is making it go further and further up the ladder for me.
Yeah.
So what I decided the other day, as I was thinking about, is going, right, well, if this is really important to me, and I'm saying it's really important, then it's time to walk the walk of the talk that's going on in my head. And I thought, right, when I get out of the energy doldrums that I'm in right now, and will be for the next few months, my focus is going to be going to the gym to do a workout with a trainer, whatever it looks like, or go for a run. But I'm doing that first. That is going to be, it's like going, nope, I have to build my health back up.
Yeah.
So that is going to go into my diary first. And then I will work and do what I can, but I have to reprioritize things.
Yeah.
And it was like going, whereas I would never have thought like that in the past, and never have dawned on me to do it. It would have been like, how can I fit the exercise in around everything else I'm doing? Whereas now I'm like going, nope, the exercise is going on first, and then it's like, how can I fit everything else I need to around me prioritizing my health to get better and to make sure, my cancer is hormonal. So, but that, that's something that has to be medically managed. But within that, my health, I have the ability to manage that. And so I'm going, right, that's going to be first. And again, it's that whole looking at, Stephen Covey's analogy of sharpening the axe, and what are the different areas in your life you need to be looking at, and it's your psychological, it's your mental, it's your emotional, and it's your physical. And within that, and going back to the word harmony, if we are not looking at all of those boxes and ticking them, whatever, if one box is 10% and another is 50% and one is 20% and another is 20%, whatever that looks like, to me, the chapter of your life will dictate how much the percentages are. But a lot of people are, including me, in the past, workaholic, where I would have been 80 to 90% in a work box. So there was no harmony. So what I'm learning now is actually, I need to rebalance that, and I have control and I have say, but I know how to manage that, and I feel very comfortable in managing that, because now I understand looking at the importance of roles and priorities and within my value system. I'm understanding all of this, and again, this is all content I would never ever have understood years and years ago. I just wouldn't, I would have, pragmatically I would have read it going, yeah, that makes sense, whatever, but It's the difference between reading something and then actually going into your soul going, oh, I really get this now. And I really get this now. And the more I read, you know, even books that I read a few years ago where I would have gone, oh, okay, right, okay, over my head. Whereas now I'm sort of going, oh yeah, I totally get this, And it's right there in my DNA now. So that's part of the reprioritization and looking at the harmony of family and my health and work. I can do everything. Sorry, not that I can do everything, but I can choose the level of balance and harmony. And that harmony is within my chapter today with young kids, because in a few years when they don't want to talk to me, and then another few years beyond that when they've moved out, I get to control and reharmonize what that looks like. You know, so there is, I think people have this expectation that it has to be perfect, going to absolutely this, and if you saw the rest of my house, the mess, absolutely not perfect. But it's being okay with where you are today and where your life is today and the chapter you're in today, because we're all in a chapter, we're all in a journey, but it's being okay with that. But you're only going to be okay with it, go back to what we started talking about, when you know who you are and you understand yourself and you're okay with who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think that the last thing I'd add to that, when you're just saying though, it's the point of in some ways of that knowledge is also the application of that knowledge. So even just the example that you said there, in sense of, you know, being able to change your priorities, you know, they're going, okay, actually I'm putting this first, I'm shifting my life here. And it's the actual, there's the doing element, and it's one of those things that I've been sort of like very much thinking about, in a sense of, and with when talking to people, is this what I think, you know, reharmonizing and balancing, all these different words, but it is that sort of, you know, the reflections of what you say and think, you know, what you think and feel being reflected in what you say and do. You know, it's that, you know, and both vice versa, you know, so it's not, and sometimes you do have to go all in one or all in the other, but it's kind of like trying to make sure it's not as jerky or as jumpy or as all in and exhausted and then sort of crashing out, is trying to find. And I think that word harmony, I've heard a few times, it's a nice word. It's like, it does have the versus balance. With the image I get of balance is like that whole seesaw thing, or just someone, you know, the whole thing of the plates and all that sort of stuff, where harmony just has a bit more of a rounded, in my head, I sort of feel to it.
And for me too. And I think, you know, I think balance, and it's exactly like it's balancing plates, or it's a weighing scales, and it has to be balanced. And I'm going, things can't be balanced if different parts of your life are more important, or a bigger chunk of your essence and your being. You can't, but you can have them in harmony, because this bit of family and kids matters a lot now. And it's not that it won't ever matter in the future, it'll just diminish in how much time it takes. And therefore, when I have release of time, I get to plan where I spend that time in the future. And that's what harmony looks like. Where are you at now? Meet yourself where you are now and be okay with that. Not that you have to be all working or all family or all this or all nothing. Just work out what is the best. You know, if you realize that it's so important to be spiritually and mindfully have balance, some balance in there, and some connection to it, that you're not avoiding it or not realizing how important it is, and that sort of spirituality piece. Your physical, what are you doing for your physical essence, psychological, and, you know, if your mental, and you're working and you're learning, and self-development. You know, we have to work on all of these pieces to be healthy, rounded individuals. You know, and if we're negating or neglecting any part of that body or part of those roles within our lives, then we're not in harmony. And when we're not in harmony, something else kicks out. And I also know, like for me, a couple of years ago, I was in chronic pain, like for between back and ankles and bones and joints, and, you know, part of most likely perimenopause, because part of one of the symptoms is just joint pain and stuff like that. But I was in chronic pain, like it was just, it was awful. I was going for, and it didn't matter how much Pilates and training I was doing, everything like that. But fast forward a couple of years and I don't have any of that pain. I literally don't have any of that pain. And part of it is I attribute to my mindset shift and what I have learned, and how I'm reframing experiences in my life, and how, you know, there's a book I bought there, I haven't read it yet, but it says The Body Keeps Score. And whatever's going on in your head, whether your conscious head, your thinking brain, or your subconscious, is coming out askew in your body. And but you have to spend time looking at that and learning about it. And again, that whole reframe is like, right, well, what is important to me right now, and not fighting against it, and not doing things because other people think you should be doing something. It's like, well, no, who are you? And if you've got your values and priorities and stuff like that, and you start understanding, right, this is me, this is who I'm supposed to be, then a lot of the weight of the should and have to and must be seen to goes, actually, I don't need to, because that's not me. Let whoever else thinks that they should, must have, jog on through and let them run their lives. But this is what me showing up, being empowered, enlightened, and being a good person and serving and adding value to others looks like. And again, come back to that's liberating. It's just like a weight of stuff just goes off your shoulders.
Completely. One of the things I love to ask people who come on to chat to me on the podcast is about quotes and phrases. I have a love of them, fascination in them, I suppose, as well. So are there any quotes or phrases that are important to you?
Lots. I do on my social media, I put out a quote every Monday, and something that has resonated with me. And if you saw my books, they're dog-eared, folded, underlined, notes written, and basically unconsumable by any other human being after I have gone through a book. So I'm always going, there's quote. Like the one I put up today, actually, which I think is really impactful. It's what we think that ultimately manifests in results. And that was by Bob Proctor. And why I put that up today is because we all spend time thinking about stuff. But my question there is what you're thinking serving you? Because if you're thinking about it the whole time, you have to question, does it serve you or not? So if you're in debt, are you thinking about debt the whole time? Because you're only going to be in debt. If you're thinking about a problem that you have in your life, you can't get a house, or you can't get a mortgage, or you don't, somebody else's fault, that's all you're thinking about, you're literally working in a camp of negativity and potentially toxicity. But what if you were to jump into a camp of positivity and go, I can do this, I am able to do this, I'm focusing on the solution, not on the problem. And you go and put your thinking mind into positive mode and solution finding mode and can-do mode, how things would shift in your life. But I think it's extremely, and again, it's back then, like who might do something, who might not do something. It's the subtlest change in what are you thinking about? You get to choose what you're thinking about. Is it in a negative camp? Is it in a positive camp? Because you get to choose. But if you're negative, that's all that you attract. Law of attraction, that's all that you attract. But how about if you choose to be in a positive camp and choose to attract positivity? Now see what's going to happen with your life. Now see what's going to happen with your motivation and your ability to act and motive action and getting things moving in a good way for you. But again, the more I learn about this, and I know you get all of this. It's the power of how we think literally dictates everything, and we have the choice. We have the choice. Viktor Frankl, we get to choose. We get to choose. But most people, and a lot of people, choose to think it's somebody else's fault, or it's up to somebody else, or it's the government, or it's my family, or it's my partner, or it's my kids, or it's whatever. It's going to actually. Being a responsible human being means that we take responsibility. Full stop. We, as individual adults, have to take responsibility. You put a full stop and then go, now what does that look like, and what does that mean? What am I going to focus my thoughts on? And see what happens.
It's I mean, it's massively powerful, and you're reminding me there of in a sense of how thinking and the way you think can change how you approach something. So you mentioned earlier that I'm training for the marathon, I'm training for the London Marathon at the moment, and I was just kind of over the peak of the big sort of long training, and it was 2 weeks ago, I did my longest run. So I did 30 kilometers, which were 18 and a half, 19 miles, something like that. So that was my big run. And then it starts to drip down. But leading up to it, and I was trying to find a space because the weather was awful, the rain. I was trying to find a window to get into this run.
A bit like today.
Yeah. And I said, we're driving in the car with my wife, and at some point I was like, I have to get this run done. And she just turned to me, so you have to, do you? And it was like, and I was like, reminded me, as I know, the phrase was, I get to do this. I have to do this because there's no one forcing me to do this. I signed up to it. I'm paying for the privilege to do this, so no one, it's like, and it's even just the way the thinking, by going in thinking I get to do this versus I have to do this, is an immediate change in my approach to how I go out for that run. So you can think, by thinking differently, saying it differently, and then thinking it differently, it literally changes the experience that you have in that moment, 100%. Whatever it is. So that quote you just shared there from Bob Proctor about what you're thinking, it absolutely has a direct impact on then your emotions and then your behaviors.
Absolutely. 100%. And it is, and this comes down to, everything, now I bring back down to networking, but a lot of people would think, if you talk about networking, it's you're going to an event and you're handing out business cards. But actually what networking and teaching people to network for me means is far more holistic, and it's around mindset, it's around connection, it's around self-awareness. And when you have those pieces, you grow in confidence. And as I say to everybody that I train with, if you grow with your confidence, you can achieve anything. The world is your oyster, but you have to learn how to. Confidence is a skill. It's a muscle that you have to develop and keep developing, but you have to learn what that looks like. How does that happen for you? Because it's unique to you. But if you do it, imagine what you could accomplish. Taking on the world, getting that promotion, whatever it is. And I said it like, if networking were to give you that sense of awareness and build up your confidence and your resilience and your ability to connect and communicate and articulate and develop all of these skills, now tell me you wouldn't learn how to network. Because network is like the key to success.
Yeah, no, because it's I'm really glad you brought it back to that, because it's that phrase, and we spoke before in a sense of, and when we were just chatting, and in a sense of what we do, and for me, in a sense of when we think about this, really ties into what we were just talking about thoughts and how you think about something. And for me, that whole thing of networking, that word, like in my head, was just this alarm bell of just like of this sort of, as you say, one of this sort of like either just handing out business cards, or I was evoking these images of quite cheesy, everyone in suits, sort of doing, just cringe would be the word that I would have kind of associated in a sense of networking. Whereas I'd say how you just described it there is kind of like, well, who wouldn't want to know that skill?
So exactly. And this is when I started networking, when I got made redundant and I was working in an SME and I started networking, I was horrible at it, like really, really horrible. And it doesn't matter what I've realized through training and talking to people is that it doesn't matter how accomplished you are in your career, how many badges, how many certifications, if somebody has not shown you the ropes or shown you how to manage you within the context of meeting and having conversation and building relationships with others, why would you know how to do it? Why would you know? So again, I get people to reframe, if this is something you need to learn, it doesn't matter whether you're 20 or whether you're 50 or 60, if it's going to make you more comfortable, learn it. Learn what you can to make it easier going forward, to make you a better person. And I think it's such a powerful skill. Like I call it a power skill. A lot of people will talk about, here are all the soft skills we need to know. But I'm going, no, they're power skills, because they actually unlock everything else. They unlock everything else. And that to me is a huge part of why I do what I do. But the essence of networking, it's be curious. It's think about building relationships with other people. And you know, there's a lot more to it than that, you know, and I can wax lyric and I can talk literally all day long about it, but it's about being curious and building relationships with other people. And what I do when I'm training is to help reframe how people are thinking about it, but also to demyth and to debunk myths about what it's supposed to be or what people think it's supposed to be, and just say, let's take a step back. And you know, let's look at some frameworks and some tips to help you get out there and navigate what that might look like. So that's one of the things that I help people with.
Yeah, absolutely. You shared there that quote from Bob Proctor. Who would you say have been some of the bigger influences on you throughout your life, whether it be in the public eye or private?
Who have been influences? I suppose, you know, in one sense, influence can be good or bad, and we tend to think of influence as good, but I've had a lot of experiences in corporate life that weren't good, and a lot of them have influenced me in terms of the type of manager I wanted to be and how I wanted to show up, the type of learning I wanted to process and to expose myself. A lot of those influences influenced me to think, right, that certain actions and people and the way they treated people didn't sit with me. So that influenced me to follow different trajectories. I suppose in some ways I would listen to a lot of podcasts and I read an awful lot. And I watch, you know, there's people in some of my networks who are quietly behind the scenes, you know, they're supporting me and they influence me because I just think, wow, they're just amazing people. But there's one book I read there the week before last called Maximum Achievement by Brian Tracy. And I have to say, like, I've read an awful lot of the type of book, and it was definitely one of the best ones I've read recently because it was sort of an amalgam of different thoughts across different books that I've read. I find with a lot of the self-development books, they tend to be by a lot of American authors. They tend to be a lot of male American authors. So there's a particular perspective and bias that does come through them, whether they realize it or not, that whole unconscious bias. But I have to say that was one of the best books that I've read recently. And I think then there's a couple, I like lots of different podcasts and stuff like that. So there are people who sometimes if I feel a little bit down, I might listen to one of the podcasts and they're a little bit more upbeat. So I like the marketing side of things. So I listen to some Marie Forleo or Amy Porterfield in terms of the marketing side of things. And but there's lots of different ones that I would read, and they collectively influence, because I suppose I'm in that space of wanting to know more and realize I'm very much cognizant of the fact that I'm only at the start of this journey of self-awareness. But you know, again, back down to where it all started, me being doing this later in life. One, I'm totally motivated to do it. I just love it. And all my family going, why are you reading all this stuff? Would you not just pick up a book of fiction? I go, what? I don't have time for fiction. There's too much to learn over here. Do you understand what I'm learning? And you know, so there's those, and they're going, she's crazy, and I'm going, nope, you're crazy for not going and following this, and you should be reading this. And not that I don't proselytize or push it down their throat. I just sort of say, this is a really, really good book. All your books are really good, Jean. And I go, no, but this is really, really good.
I've been known to do that myself. But what I think is really sort of interesting, and I think just to echo there in a sense of, like, because you're the first person that's said it when I've asked this kind of question about people that have influenced us or other people that in our lives, is we can take influence from the people that we've had negative experiences with, whether it be in a workplace or a friendship or a relationship or whatever that is, in a sense of, now they can influence us in a negative way as well, potentially as well, and behaving maybe in a different way that we don't want to, and you say it's not really us, but I would absolutely echo in a sense of, like, there's people that you've come across, whether in a workspace or just in life, and you go, that's the behavior I do not want to demonstrate in myself. And that's the,
100%.
and that can be just as empowering as the person that kind of inspires you, because
Yeah.
that, in some way, that experience you have within that sort of negative can inspire you in a sense, again, to be a better version of who you are, or when you see a behavior, is like, because when you experience something like that directly, you kind of go, well, I don't want someone else to feel like this from experiencing that behavior, so I'm not going to behave in that way because I know what it's like to
Yeah.
have that. So I think it's not one, because maybe the question isn't sort of phrased in that way, but I think it's really powerful that you shared that, because we can take the inspiration from the negative influences as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this, and I quite a few negative experiences, and God, probably more than a few that have influenced me in my career, and literally made me think that's not how to treat people. Or I don't want to be associated with people who treat people like that. And there's also, but I also know, like, in one of my last positions where things were changed when I came back from maternity, and I in my own ignorance didn't really know how to deal with it, and how I dealt with it, I was really, really angry for a couple of years. But I look back on it now, I would have managed it differently because I know more. I would have managed differently because I had the confidence, and not just the knowledge, the confidence to do more. I would have been able to fight for myself better and stand up for myself, and to make sure certain things didn't happen again. And I just didn't know at the time. I didn't have the ability myself to do and react and manage the situations. Whereas, yeah, they were influences where they were negative when I was in them. Whereas, again, but what I choose to take out of it now is like, what are the bits that I could learn? What are the bits that I can take forward to, if I come across somebody in that situation again, what advice would I give them, be it in a corporate space or be it in their own self-management? So I look at it, right, well, what can I take out of this to help me move forward? So it wasn't that it was pleasant at the time, it wasn't, but it was sent to teach me something. So
yeah,
that's what I take
take
out
something
of it.
from it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jean, it's been fabulous to talk to you, and really enjoyed the conversation. I do have just one more question for you, which is, what's important for your future?
Ooh, what's important for my future? I'm going to start with my kids, that I have happy, healthy, well-rounded and grounded and useful children that know how to turn on a washing machine and turn the dishwasher on and load it properly. That do pick up their socks. I potentially will die trying in all of the aforementioned, but we will persevere. I'm nothing if not perseverant. I suppose the next thing is getting my health back on track. I said, my treatment is a year for this stage of it, I feel like. So it's a sort of a longish trek, but it's to get through that and be smiling at the other end, and then to build up my health again. And to lose weight, because of chemo and not being able to exercise, obviously that has a detrimental effect on the other side. So to get all of that back under control, it's to build my business up. I think I had ideas of where I wanted it to go, but now I'm sort of very gung ho, right, this is where it's going.
Yeah.
And I've got even bigger dreams and ideas of what I would like to. So I'm going to work on sort of the manifestation of that. So it's family, it's health, it's my business, and within the business, then empowering and helping others, because I think that's the value and part of the purpose of where I feel my purpose is at, and where I feel I'm on the right path. It just feels right. There isn't a question mark in anything I'm doing. It's like part of everything I've gone through in my life is there, that I can help people do things quicker, better, faster, easier, and do it with a sense of peace and joy and love. And I think if that's value I can bring to others, that's good. I'm good with that.
Yeah, absolutely. As I say, it's been fantastic to talk to you, Jean. I do, and I'm sure anyone who's listening to this, wish you all the best with your continuing treatment. I hope
Thank
it
you so
all
much.
goes well for you. We obviously want to make sure you are supported in your business as well. We'll make sure all your links are shared in the notes. But if you want to just give a shout out now where people can follow you and connect with you online, that'd be great.
Yeah, cool, super. So I have a blog on networking where I write about networks and different things on networking, questions that I hear asked, and I try to answer them. So that's www.networkinggene.ie. And then my business network, which will be, I suppose, is a ... watch this space, but that's ignitebusinessnetwork.ie. And people can register interest if their interest there. If they're in a B2B space and they would like to know more about it, they can reach out to me there. And then I'm all of our socials, so LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, at networkinggene is where you'll find me, or on Instagram it's at networkinggene.ie. So I'm all over social, so I'd love people to connect and start a conversation with me, and if I can be of help, I would love to connect.
Brilliant. And all of those links will be in the show notes, so you can click on whichever social or all of them use, and you'll be able to connect and follow with Jean there. Thanks again, Jean. Thank you so much for the conversation.
Thanks, James. Pleasure being with you.
Bye. Thank you for listening to What's Important to You. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, comment, and share. And make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Again, you can follow me at 𝗵𝙤𝙀 on Facebook and Instagram. Connect with me on LinkedIn, or find out more about me on 𝗵𝙤𝙀𝘃.com.